what to do. We should meet actually to discuss. I have a proposition for I have a radical proposition which I'm fairly sure if it was taken up, that within a short time the Irish Yatra could be booming with many devotees. However, I don't think you'll want to take it up. Can you guess what it is? No, it's a highly radical proposition. Any guesses? That's it. I mean, he was more or less thrown out, and we can understand some of the reasons why that was so. But on the other hand, he's a charismatic leader, and it's what he had the whole yatra booming. I mean, maybe it was literally booming too much in some ways. So, but on the other hand, he acquired properties, he made devotees, and so many things. He's a real leader by nature. And that was like 15 years ago since it.
Yeah, that's 88, I think it was.
Yes, it's about 15 years. So maybe he's mellowed out a little bit since then. Possibly. I'm not sure. I mean, the problem was that he upset, particularly Satsrup Maharaj's disciples, I think, was it? I mean, I heard he said some things which were really not at all very diplomatic about Satsrup Maharaj. You know, whatever you feel. I mean, it's not beyond the bounds of Vaishnava behavior that one godbrother will express some feelings, even if they're negative, about another. Because we're living in a practical world, and you know, not everyone agrees with everyone and everything. Although it's not very diplomatic, you might say, or very pragmatic even, to say openly, to say among the disciples, especially it's not pragmatic to say when they're all the leaders of the yatra. But anyway, that's my idea, that if we go along the way we're going with the people who are here, I mean, no insult or bad intention to anyone, but I don't see anyone here, including myself, who are charismatic leaders. I'm also not. You know, although I'm an ISKCON guru, I'm not a charismatic organizer or leader. I tend to work with people. I don't take the lead so much in organizing things. I'm more concerned with writing books and this kind of thing. So, I mean, there are certain people who get right in there, roll their sleeves up, and you're all doing that too, but I mean, certain people have got certain qualities, and you know, some people have got it, just like you're saying, some people have inborn qualities of demons by birth, and some people have inborn qualities as well. Some people are born musicians, and some people are born leaders, and although all of us may lead to some extent, some are more capable than others. See, there are different devotees. Prithu Prabhu, Shivaram Maharaj in a completely different way to Prithu Prabhu is also a person who can, you know, in Hungary, he went and he patiently built up and developed his talent. So I asked him once, why don't you do the same thing? He said, I can't. He said, I don't want to get much involved because I can take the lead. I can't lead if others don't want to follow. So that was his. In Hungary, he said, I can do everything. I'm spending more time there. I can do everything. The devotees cooperate. But he said in England, and I suppose that means Ireland also, that it's very difficult to organise when it's very difficult to. It's not possible to lead actually when others don't want to follow. Of course, someone who's a very great leader, they can get even those who don't want to follow. And those who don't want to follow, I mean, in politics, those in such a situation, those who don't want to follow, they get shocked. But we don't do that in our Christian culture. I mean, sometimes we throw them out of the zone and this kind of thing. Those days are over. So anyway, that's a suggestion. Okay, now you're going to shoot me.
We actually we invited people to go back for the rally events appearance. Then we sort of we put quite a few borders were crossed, and we had a good time. Now his disciples are becoming more involved in coming up to Ishtagoshti quite regularly, and they want to get involved in helping and so on like that. So I definitely think that is it's sort of happening sort of slowly like that, but it's
well, the thing is with Prithu Prabhu, the way he works is he takes charge, which would mean that your many years of effort and would be eclipsed. I mean, you'd have to take more of a back seat, I guess, if he was gracious about it, which is all being recorded here. I mean, it's not, he has many wonderful qualities, but that may not be one in which he's most prominent. He might bring you on board and all this kind of thing. But it seems to me that, different people work in different ways. Others work in teamwork. Of course, he works with a team, but the team's under him. Whereas others work with a team where they discuss and they come to an agreement and this and that, which is probably more, it's more reasonable. But, being reasonable and being nice doesn't always parallel being effective in leading. I mean, there are many management books about how you have to be nice to everyone and this and that, but you see people who are actually leaders, that if you're actually going to lead, then sometimes you have to be not so nice to people. That's the way it is, because you have to take decisions, and not everyone likes a decision, but then things get done. And sometimes when you take a decision, they get done in the wrong direction. But when you're trying to be nice to everyone and have a committee, and then actually nothing really gets done most of the time, because you don't really take any positive direction because you're being careful not to tread on anyone's toes. And then if you do something, then there's always going to be someone who doesn't like it, and so you never do anything. I mean, these are very broad generalizations. So that would be the scenario, actually. I mean, I don't know if he'd take it up even because he's got his hands full, but I think he probably might like to. And then the other charismatic leader in the area who could probably do something is Puri Maharaj. But I don't know actually if he would or could, because he already has, I think, the whole of northern England. He's not really doing, it seems to me, that much to develop it there. He's mostly developed in Scotland. So, in your case, it would probably mean moving to a different role, which might be nicer actually. I mean, if you had a preaching role instead of having to worry about everything, especially the Lakshmi. I mean, you could retire, so to speak, and just do preaching. I mean, it has been a great strain for you all these years, collecting, trying to get things done. And you could probably have organized better if you didn't have to collect, but you did. So anyway, that's my proposition. Otherwise, I think the way things are going on, and we can try and organize and this and that. Tribhuvannath Prabhu, when he was here, he also got things together because he's a charismatic leader, and you actually.
Tribhuvannath went to South Africa. He really wanted to go for Africa.
Yeah, well, he developed things a little bit, and then a lot of the energy that he developed, he transferred it there.
He wanted to do it in Ireland as well, but he realised that.
Yeah, how much can you do?
Yeah.
How much can you do? And Prithvi Prabhu's, he's got a pretty big handful at the moment. He was just in Ireland at that time. He's got some area in America and some area in Germany. And taking on Germany seems to have strained his resources a little bit in terms of manpower.
He's got a centre in Vienna too.
In Vienna, he's doing very well there too, yeah. He told me that no one had ever tried to preach there. They just used to go there and collect it and distribute, and mostly collect it. But when they actually started preaching, they found it was very sweet and actually better than Germany in making devotees and everything. Because we generally tend to think of Austrians as being more Germans than the Germans. But when they actually tried to preach them, they found it was very good preaching. And Ireland is such a nice place for preaching. Maybe someone like Prithvi Prabhu is required, because although the Irish they're very favourable and everything, they tend not to. It's an ingrained national characteristic to be rebellious. So, everyone knows, right? So, unless there is unless someone's a very strong leader, it's very difficult to lead the Irish. What do you think about that? After all these years of trying. Anyway,
it's interesting that you're saying this on the eve of a regional GBC in Bangladesh.
Is it?
Yeah, at the end of September, all the European leaders are coming together. Shriram is called a meeting in Bangladesh. And lots of leaders are going there. Communications people are going, to the presidents are going. Anybody who has a management problem is going.
You're going to try and sort it out at the committee level. It doesn't really work that well. Due to dissatisfaction with leaders in general in this school, we've moved to a kind of committee. Generally think everything's committee, but nothing really happens. Things just they tend to stagnate, and problems don't get solved. They just get moved around from one committee to another.
One thing is Prithu's a Jesus man. I guess that's good for Ireland.
What's that?
He's a Jesus man.
Prithu, oh yeah,
He knows
Are people still into Jesus? People, a few people came up to me, a couple of old people, yesterday when we were on the Harinam.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a Catholic, and then there were three girls, they looked like sisters, and the youngest was about 8 years old, said, "I believe in God," as if to say we don't, or something. But
that's what the Sai Baba people say. This is just a side comment. But they say, you worship Krishna, we worship God. They worship Sai Baba.
What rascals. What rascals. I'm in favor of machine gun. It's so offensive. So offensive. Sai Baba rascal. So rascal. But it seems that the islands changed so much that even 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when preaching the Catholicism, it wasn't a big issue. People believed in it and this and that. It wasn't so much an obstruction to our preaching. People have always liked us. There were a few people like that. There were a few P-offs and F-offs. Mostly people were very appreciative, and all age groups were very. And it doesn't matter. There was no say, even businessmen in suits and this and that, at least they're taking the flyer. Someone came out, middle-aged man, and said, "Oh, you're really wonderful. Really appreciate what you're doing." So it's definitely a very good field. And the Irish, they have they're famous also for the rebels. They're famous for being missionaries. So we see that the Irish devotees, once they have that tendency to be missionaries and preachers. Of course, a lot of them went all over the world, which didn't help Ireland that much. But
that's what's that we have to have the devotees now to actually, people are trying to make devotees that they actually stay out.
Yeah, as much as possible, because it's the tendency of Irish is to go out. Although it may be changing now that the economy is improved. But the traditional tendency has to be to go all over the world. Yeah.
Even the poets and the writers go.
Yeah, they all went
James
to England.
Joyce,
Yeah.
Samuel Beckett.
Well, if there's
Then
not,
our who's that guy who was in who's stuck in prison for being homosexual?
Yeah.
Oscar Wilde.
Oh, Oscar Wilde, yeah. He was also in London. You're all in the gutter.
but at the same time, I can see when the devotees first come, if there's not so much going on in Ireland, they'll want to leave and go somewhere where there's, where they can have more association with more devotees, and it's better, it's easier for them in their spiritual life.
Yeah, we have to preach pro-Irishism. I'm Irish and proud of it.
That was a principle did when he came, first of all, like before that England, the boys would come in and just everything and leave. And then I remember Amita told me that then suddenly they came over one day and then Preeti knocked on the door and he walked in and said, "Out, everybody out," and just told them never to come back again. And then he proceeded to preach to the devotees in Ireland that everybody else was off except us. So we all thought we were on the best thing. But it worked because I know that Bali, in fact, people in March did the same thing in Scotland.
Little fanaticism.
Yeah.
He's preaching like that, also everyone's off. Well, it may be true to some extent. There are a lot of weird things going on in these days. And it might be a good idea to inoculate the devotees. Seriously. Well, I tell my disciples that, I just frankly say to them that I think many of the things in ISKCON and many of the leaders, it's not exactly what Prabhupada taught. Because, I don't want to turn them to eclectic hippies, and what's the use of being a guru? Just potpourri, take whatever you like. So, it's part of it. It's part of it. Again, if you really want to train them up to be enthusiastic and strict and everything, then you've got to say that. Otherwise, it could become like Croatia, where it's just a completely bizarre. Don't mind me saying so. Sorry if I'm offending your national spirit. But in the name of Krishna consciousness, like all New Age, and hardly anyone's following anything, or most initiated devotees don't chant 16 lines. It's only when you really get strict and together that things start to work. Like in Ljubljana now, they're starting to do things the way the Prabhupada said. Getting up in the morning, having Mangalarti, chanting, preaching according to Shastra, not according to some whatever the latest New Age guru says. And it works. But if you mix it all up and water it down, it doesn't work. Then you don't get Krishna consciousness. You just get some kind of Mayavad mush. So, that's my suggestion. Otherwise, we could say we'll organize this program and that program. But I in favor of strong leadership with all its inherent faults. Even in the secular field, I was living in Bangladesh for quite a few years, so they went through phases of dictatorship and democracy. And actually, when there's dictatorship, the country is much better organized, and people are much less agitated. There might have been a few excesses and tortures and executions here and there, but in general, people, there's a leader and that's it. And things could get organized, whereas with democracy, there are always riots in the streets and protests, and no one knew what was going on from one day to the next. Democracy might work to some extent in these countries, but it's not very often. There's actually less corruption when there's dictatorship, because with dictatorship, there's one person being corrupt. And with democracy, there's lots of people being corrupt, and the whole place becomes corrupt. So, that's not exactly these. But the point is that with strong leadership, there may be some excesses also. So the alternative is no leadership and nothing gets done. And then we're just nice, that's all. Then we have 5 of us who are nice to each other. And actually, they're not usually. Usually what happens in the name of being nice, everyone's just backbiting behind everyone else's back and making a veneer of being nice. At least with strong leadership, they're straight out nasty. You're not trying to make a show of being nice.
Where do you think the critical will go over all disputes and conduct?
You might come, the other half, if you invite him. It's a suggestion that if it was to happen, would probably within a short time have the whole Yatra booming again. Whereas, no disrespect to any of you, but even if I was to come and spend time here, even if I was to come and spend time here, then it wouldn't happen in the same way that it would with Pritha Prabhu, because he's an organizer and motivator. Had you thought about that at all? Maybe you had.
It would be something that I think it would polarize certain people on it.
Well, there aren't that many of the old school left.
There's not.
There's yourself who has Japa Yagya,
No.
Pragosh.
Yeah.
Pragosh, he wouldn't go for it. Would he?
I don't think he would. No. Very much.
What about yourself? Would you be open to it at all?
I would be probably more open to it than Pragosh would, but because in one sense of my relationship with Pragosh, I probably would stay with Pragosh to try to push on as we're going on. But I tend to think that Priti and Pragosh also they have a certain respect as well for each other in that sense too. And I don't think Priti has been very, very good in that sense. Like, for instance, the whole idea when we were selling the island, he was very supportive, even though he didn't go with the idea, but he was very respectful to the devotees doing that. And then, and he was also very, supportive, like one of his disciples now, which I and so on. And he's very much a well-wisher. He wants all his disciples to help him as well.
Yeah. Maybe there still could be some kind of reconciliation.
Yeah.
Maybe it's possible. Maybe some mediator is required.
Yeah.
Is Pragosh Prabhu coming?
I think they're coming on right now today. But,
I wanted to speak with him about France, actually.
oh,
I didn't have this idea of saying all these things to you. It's just that you said yesterday about organizing and just, I wasn't particularly thinking about it.
And Shiva Swami has a very good relationship with Coach as well. They are very, very close in that sense. And he's also given it to Coach at that time.
Maybe Pritha Prabhu could get involved in a manner that would be acceptable to all, like sending some of his disciples.
Yeah. I mean, when he comes now, he comes once or twice.
He's got some very good disciples. Active now.
Yeah.
From Ireland.
Yeah.
His disciples tend to be very active.
That's right, yeah. Like, I asked Ronnie Kumar if he would also, maybe come over to Ireland as well. He's going to go back to America with his child. But he's quite interested as well. Probably that's the way, because there's more of his disciples now, his presence will be more natural in Ireland in that sense. And so, I think
they're all mature devotees also.
They are, yeah. I think there'll be a nice, gradually he will have more of an impact. Maybe not as big. See, in one sense that was
probably the Kaiser.
Yeah, that was probably the problem that I had, because even when everybody went against Brita the last time, like I had Rohini Kumar and his disciples in Dublin, but the thing was I was reluctant that everybody who became to the temple would go to Nishrat and would automatically become a preacher disciple. That was the real problem that I had, because I thought that some people, because I know some people who did become a disciple are not really suited in one sense, they don't really gel very well. So I wanted more of a pluralistic sort of situation like in ISKCON, that devotees are able to choose a person who they feel they can surrender to more so. So that was sort of the reason why that.
Maybe these things could be discussed and worked out. There aren't that many gurus these days who are into a kind of its own acharya system. Most of them, they don't, they're even quite happy in one sense if devotees become disciples of someone else, because when you've got so many disciples, then not everyone thinks like that, but many think that it's like, alright, it's a great right now. So.
We were also hoping that Trivikram Maharaj, that time when he came to Ireland, that he would start to go out when he was in Cork, that he would also start to do more.
What happened? I remember that he was in Cork. What happened?
Some of his disciples didn't get visas and followed to cruise ship business there more of the time. But he was coming to all the national council meetings, and he was, I mean, even a couple of years ago, I mentioned to him as one great town that we have a place here now if he's interested in coming here and getting involved.
One thing in Ireland that's going on is that more devotees, and even Grihastha devotees from India are serving in Ireland as pujaris. There's one in Belfast, there's also Lake Island. Two or three.
I would think in general that's not a very good sign, because that means you're not making our own devotees. That's usually a sign of regression. I have to know. We also have to break fast, isn't it?
It's okay, Baruch. It's until 10 o'clock.
I think I was misinformed. My calendar is for India, and somebody else said it's 8:12.
8:12 to or
until 8:12.
6:01 till 8:12.
Then we've missed it.
It can't be 6:01 because it was still dark at that time. That must be the Indian time.
No, that's the one that they sent for the track to the calendar.
How is that? Do you have any prasad, greens?
Yeah, it's just going to come.
Okay, come.
There's a couple of grains.
Lord, I talked to a couple of Irish devotees, and it seems that many of them cannot forget what Preeti Prabhu had done wrong to them. But he has changed, definitely.
He's working cooperatively in Germany.
Yeah,
as a co-GBC, and in America also.
He's definitely not the same old, so to say, bad Preeti. He has changed, definitely. My guru told me that. I know I could see him.
He learned a little bit from his son, and he saw how he had neglected his son, and how his son grew away from him. And he felt bad about that. I think that contributed to changing. His wife now, she's away from him too. Of course, that's natural. It's kind of a long process, but she's studying in the United States, working very hard to get a degree. So his life has changed in some ways, personally.
But his dynamism in making devotees and getting things done, that's still there.
I was thinking as well, instead of having, like you were suggesting, that he comes and just works as the devotees, more or less is just preaching and, not being an authority. But what about just letting him have a zone in Ireland? Say you were to let him, not Dublin because, the older devotees are here in Suffolk, but suppose you were going to let him for a year, devotees decided to let him be in charge in Galway and to preach there and see how it went, see how devotees there felt with him.
It's a possibility. It might be a little bit of a small time place for him.
Or somewhere, any...
Give me Aran Islands and Galway.
One thing we should consider also is that the... actually, wait a minute. That's a fast one. I was going to say, just you can remind me if I forget that service to the deities, we have to consider the way that the deities are being worshipped. I mean, the Innisrath Island needs the building needs complete renovation.
Belfast too.
Yeah. So that's not going to happen very soon at this present